Brother Bay, could you come say a few words for us? We have a tribute for Brother Bay that's going to be this evening. So after you leave here, after Marimba's presentation, which is going to end at 6, we want you to come out to KEMA, which is the Kemetic Institute for Magnificent Achievers on Peabody Street and North Capitol Street. They're doing a tribute, a musical consciousness tribute with Black Notes, with Human Prophets, and with Ayanna Gregory. And like I say, this brother has a great bio. The bio, I printed up enough bios for about 50 people, and they're all gone, which is good that there's more people than that. I'll have them tomorrow as well. But Brother Bay, could you please say a few words for us?
First of all, giving honor to the Most High God, whether it's male or female. Then giving honor to my 99 young mother. And to all of those ancestors who outran us to be an ancestor. One of the most important parts of the aspect of male-female relationship is the male bonding. Inside of us, we have a female that lives and waits for an awakening, and sometimes we don't understand that feminine that's in there. And so what happens is we make the macho stance much permanent in our lives than allowing this feminine part to come in. And so when we look through so much of the confusion in terms of what we eat, who we are, what we should eat, how much we should eat, how much water we drink, it has always been dictated to us by somebody else who really don't know us. And we have to begin to start teaching ourselves first personally. You know, my responsibility for my healing and myself is myself. I don't care what modalities or whatever you have. If I don't want to be well, then I'm not going to be well. And that starts with my mind. And so when the brother asked about prostate cancer and the son, well, you can give me everything you want. But if I feel negative about myself, if I feel a life that's been confused, or if I have some issues that's deep down inside of me that I'm not resolving, then not only prostate cancer or anything else can bother you. And so when you hear people ask you, well, what are you going through? I had to learn to not claim any of it, because claiming it even makes it want to stay longer. You know, I had to start praying to have whatever's in me to be evicted soon, fast, and in a hurry. I had to begin to lay hands on myself as if I'm the healer that can heal myself. First of all, I'm the one who got myself sick. If I'm sick, then I should be able to understand that I have the power in there to turn that around. And I have to first turn it around with the love I love myself. And most of us don't understand how to love ourselves. So that's why when we get into typical situations of things, we find that there's a fire that's burning through us. And all of us have to go through that fire. But what happens is we go through the fire and don't understand that the power through the fire takes us to another level. And then what happens is that fire become a raging fire. So you find that people are enraged. They're riding down the street in rage. They're living in your house in rage. They're sleeping in your bed in rage. And the biggest fire that we have there is the fire that's in our children. Because we don't wake up and give our children love. We give them a knapsack and some books to go to school. We might feed them something if we have it, but we don't give them that love as they leave. And then when they come back, we don't give them that love of, did you have a good day, or what did you learn today? We don't give them the hugs that they need, because all of us need nurturing. And so as brothers, we have to understand that now more than ever, all the family must come together. Every brother and every sister everywhere must know the time is in the air. Common blood flows through common veins, and we must all realize that we're all one and the same. And if we don't understand that, then we will be sitting here another 2,000 years trying to figure this out when God has already worked it out for us. So we have to begin to start putting these fires out. Brothers that don't have a job, don't know what to do, then pick up a broom every Friday at 12 noon and just go outside and start sweeping out in front of your door. That's an example. If you start sweeping, the young brother will see you sweeping, he'll want to sweep. We learn by examples and not learn by the things that we talk. And so we have to begin as brothers to stop talking about these things, but begin to mobilize what we need. Brother and I was riding down the street earlier today, and some people were walking across the crosswalk, and the brother kind of, four little young European brothers, and they was looking at me like, you didn't give us the chance to walk through the crosswalk. And I said, okay. So I gave him the peace sign. Well, he turned around and gave me the other kind of sign. You know, so I said, okay. So I let brother out the car. I rode around the corner and rode around the corner, saw what restaurant they went in, and I walked up on all four of these little white young brothers in the restaurant. And I walked up on them, and they first jumped, because they knew they were out of order. And I said, you owe me an apology. And they said, what, don't crowd us? I said, I'm not crowding you. I said, but you owe me an apology. I said, when I found in myself that I was wrong and didn't give you the space to go across the crosswalk, I gave you the peace sign to acknowledge you that I was wrong, but let's have peace. And you turned around and y'all gave me the other sign. I said, so you owe me an apology. So he said, well, I thought that's what you, I said, you can't move on what you thought. You have to move on who you are. And inside you is a God just like it is a God inside of me. And you owe me an apology. And they apologized. Because I stand on the promise that God say, I am who I am. And I represent who I am. I wasn't hostile. I wasn't upset. I wasn't volatile or anything like that. I kept my peace. And I stood my ground. And that's what we have to do. We don't have to get upset to upset this spirit that's inside of us. If you need some help, call on the ancestors. Call on Dr. Bite. Call on Dr. John Chazelle and ask them the question. Ask them for help. Call them. That's what they're there for. What do you think they outran us for? Other than that, they would still be here. You have to use your power to understand, brothers, that we are. It's like a brother come up to me, want to sell me a final call. I said, brother, I am the final call. What you mean? I said, brother, I am. I said, brother, I've lived 60-some years to understand what I have to do at this point. And I don't need a newspaper to certify and identify who I am. I need you to first greet me as a brother. Either it's going to be assalamu alaikum or it's going to be, how you doing, brother? But just don't stick a paper in my face and say, do you want to buy a paper? That's not pleasant. I don't care who you are. Young brother wants some money. You got a quarter. First of all, how are you doing? It's pleasant. How good and how pleasant it is when we all dwell in harmony. Blessed are those who struggle. Oppression is worse than the grave. It is better for me to live and die a noble cause than to live and die a slave. And I'm not going out as a slave and even a slave to my own mentality. So what I say to you brothers and you sisters that are here today, I thank God for the fact that we have made it. I thank God that we have made it through the rushes like Moses, that we'll be able to see another day, to turn that light on one more time. Not the bud light or the party light, but that divine light that lives in us. And as I move, because I will never leave you, nor forsake you, nor desert you. I've been on this path too long to be a fool at this point. You have to stay strong on your commitment. And you have to become committed. And what I find with brothers is, and I want to see this before I leave. I am not leaving here until I see this. So y'all can sit in them chairs and act like you don't understand what I'm saying. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me before I leave. I want every brother in here to stand up and hug another brother. And I want you every day to see if you can find a brother to hug. I don't want you to act like you too macho that you can't touch him. I don't want you to act like you too private that he can't share you with me. I want you to know that what's in him ain't no fear to you. And I want you to be strong enough to know that I'm a man, you're a man, and we can bond. So I'm waiting, and I'll wait till you hug each other, and then I'll do what I got to do. What's up with you? You get some of this too. thank you very much. Continue to have a good and pleasant day. And I just wanted to say to my dear sister over here, I don't know where your learning comes from, but my teachers teach me that the circle cannot be unbroken. When you look at the time that you come and then the time that you leave, there is no leaving, there is no escaping, because this circle is never unbroken. And when I've read this book years ago, I knew that this sister knew something. I didn't know what she knew, but I knew she knew something because the title of her book said, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And therefore, to all of you, our circle can never be unbroken. Even if you try to break it, you don't have the ability mentally, physically, nor spiritually to break that circle. Be a part of the circle. Enjoy your life. I hope you all live forever and I never die. Peace.
Okay, thanks folks for hanging in there with us. We're at 5 o'clock. We're going to be out of here by 6 o'clock. I need to get this screen off here so that we can have a blank screen for the projector up here, okay? And that's what we're going to work on for the next couple of minutes. Professor Dr. Marimba Ani is our next and final presenter for the day. And she is always full of great ideas, great understanding, great wisdom. For those of you who don't know her, she was a professor she was a professor. Can I shut it down? Okay. Shut down. Okay, cool. A professor at Hunter College for many years and is a cultural anthropologist by training, background in philosophy, and has been an organizer. So, before, all of the academic accolades was a history of organizing during the voting registration drives in Mississippi. She was one who was known to the likes of Fannie Lou Hamer and many, many others like Kwame Ture. Her scholarship is truly visionary, and like in that the phrase that the folks like to use in science, it's cutting edge. That means it's like right on the edge of where we got to go. So I'm going to let her come on up and just start to direct traffic over here, okay? Do you want this mic?
I need you.
Are you going to walk?
Let me say one thing very quickly, that what an honor it is for me to be here and to be standing beside my brother, Jawara Sekou. I'm very proud of him, and that's what my daughter sent a message to him to say that she was proud of her uncle, that he was putting this conference on, that is much needed. And that this will definitely be the first of an annual occurrence. So all of you need to bring 10 people with you next year when we have this conference. Okay, and then we can expand on the information that's been given, because there's so much that's been given, we just didn't have time to explore it. So next year, we'll do that. This is a very valuable little book, To Be African. I don't know how many of you know this book, but in it, Baba Jawara has an article called To Be an African Husband. You must read it. And he should have made a presentation on that this time, but we'll do it next time. Okay, we are going to open up with libation. And my time hasn't started yet, by the way. Can we have the lights for a minute, please? Okay. I remember the anger rushing like rivers of fire into an icy lake of fear when they came crashing through our emerald dream with sticks thrashing thunder and tongues screeching out images that crawled through my spine and curled my stomach tight.
I can still hear the cold echoes of chilling screams creeping along the damp forest floor. An ill wind brushing against naked skin whispers our end. No! Burrows upward through my agony. Desperation fights, but tears, oh how the tears flow. The sight of loved ones slain, chained, and as their waiting floods my soul, my capture is complete.
I cannot forget his African eyes, touching mine, begging for forgiveness. Our men, our strong men, now lying empty at our feet. Dust, heat, and despair covered us. Death nursed my father, cradled my brother, and consoled others. My youngest brother, alive still, we clutch, and I could feel our pain rise. My weeping swallowed up amidst other tormented sounds, then forced apart to separate, no longer touching. Our gift to each other. The strangers pulled us apart. They pry us apart. We clasp hands.
I saw her in the distance. I sensed her pain and anguish. Her eyes darted about, searching the emptiness that was before her. Sand, like the eyes of the whites who prodded her on, clung to her near naked form as she clutched the ragged remnants of a garment, as though it held all of yesterday's golden promises. She sobbed beneath the foreign laughter that tore it from her hands. And focus, and on that lasting touch of our lives, the words "I promise" resound from eye to eye, heart to heart, and recede amidst the shadowy images of our fading world. I promise never to forget to touch.
Solemn oaths. Never to betray, never to sell out, never to work against our people, never to abandon our children, promises to be true fathers, husbands, mothers, wives, sons, and daughters, promises never to forget the way, never to be ashamed of beliefs beaten from us.
I catch my reflection among the millions, and with each promise spoken, tears rush forward because I remember. I remember promises, and seeing our children, we see our opportunity to fulfill a promise made. Holding my wife, I understand what was denied us, but shall not be denied again. We will love each other as we once promised we would. I will stand by her without shame. For the promise of our ancestors is real, based in a love carried across generations. Promises we must fulfill as ancestors returned. Emotions tear through me as I realize the truth.
I am African, not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa is born in me.
Africa, you are no longer a place, distant and unknown. You are a state of being that is continually expressed through me. As I see your light within each one of us, I recall the promise of manhood, of family, of nationhood, of unity, of never again, as reason recalls why I came back into this world and why I will come back again. For life has a need to complete something left undone.
Ancestors are returning, for there are many like me, many carrying the dream of a nation within, the vanguard preparing the way for the great ones, the old ones walking in the shoes of our children, waiting to reclaim the stolen, the lost, the denied dreams of a people, waiting to touch again, joining yesterday's and tomorrow's through today. And my efforts are no longer a struggle, my work no longer a task, but rather an offering of thanks, my libation for the blessing of being allowed to be part of it all. We remember a purpose, rushing like fires, like rivers of fire. We did not just happen to be born black. We chose. We chose to be born black because we remembered the promise. Ashe. You ready? That's part of a piece that was done by a brother that is very near and dear to us, Baba Amara Ona. And he dedicated it to those ancestors waiting for their promise to be fulfilled. What I want to do is to present an idea I want to begin with. An idea of how we can think about who we are, where we need to be, and where we need to go. So I want to present very quickly a paradigm that we've developed in order to help us to do that, to keep it simple but clear. What we say is that we begin in terms of the natural cycle. We begin in ma'at being truth, righteousness, balance, reciprocity, harmony, justice, and so forth, right order. Ma'at is the way, ma'at is the beginning, and from out of ma'at we begin to build together African civilization. And, well, I'm not going to do that. And as we build, there must be the periodic renewal. There must be the periodic recentering of ourselves, because as you work, that tension builds up and conflict builds up because we're human, and you lose that focus. And so you need the Sankofa in order to remind you of why you're doing the work in the first place. And so, in doing that, that leads us back to Ma'at. And as you can see what the diagram does, we become recentered, and then as we work again, we need periodically to be renewed, and so we come to Sankofa, and then it would go on and on, and on that diagram you would see more Ma'at, Sankofa, and so forth, and that is what would keep us healthy, and that is what did keep our ancestors healthy in the process of African civilization. And then the next one, please. But then something happens. And the third term of this paradigm is Ma'afa. And so we have Ma'afa, which is translates into disaster. It also translates in the Bamana language into the killing of human beings. It is the disaster specifically that happened to African people, where we were disconnected from our source, where the Ma'atic process was disrupted, the Ma'atic rhythm was broken, and that lodged us in this mass of pathological tissue. And so no longer were we in a state of health, but we are in a state of disease, and that's where we are now. And what the Ma'afa does is to prevent the Sankofa process of happening, so that the continuation would only be a diseased process. And then the next one. And that causes illness among us. One of those things that it causes, as Brother Samori said, the Ma'afa process continues. It didn't end when chattel enslavement ended. We are in Ma'afa now. And one of the things that happens is Urugu, who you are all probably familiar with, is expressed as a virus, which finds a host in the African. And so it causes us to manifest behaviors which are anti-African and destructive to ourselves. So it doesn't matter so much what you have on the outside. It's what's happening on the inside that we need to be dealing with, which is what Mfudishi and Nana Kwabena, Baba Jules, and others have been talking about. Next one, please. And so if you look at the paradigm very simply, we have these three terms, and you can use this paradigm, and you can make these charts yourself, your diagrams yourself, apply it to whatever you want to. But Ma'at would be source of spirit, Ma'afa denial of spirit, Sankofa affirmation of spirit, and so forth. Next one, please. You see how it works. That's just what we're going to do for today. Another one that makes it very clear Ma'at is our wholeness. Ma'afa is the splintering, the fragmentation. Sankofa is then the mending. We are in process. That's a process. Sankofa doesn't just happen like overnight or magic. It is a process of healing. Next one, please. And so if we switch it around a bit and see ourselves in Ma'afa, we have disharmony, fragmentation, dishonesty, and so forth. And through Sankofa ritual, which is the return to self, which is the return to the source, we gather strength. That takes us to Ma'at, which would then be harmony, wholeness, truth, and so forth. You see how it works. This is a paradigm, a model for thinking about ourselves. Next one, please. And so we can say that if we look at the African asili, which is the seed of the culture, as something that we need to inject ourselves with, to inject into our lives, that we can then defeat Ma'afa, which is what our ancestors, by the way, in chattel enslavement knew, that only would Ma'afa be defeated by Sankofa. They knew that, and that's why they formed the circles in the swamps and in the hills and in secret at night, risking their lives, holding each other's hands, hugging like we were just made to hug each other, so that they could connect with their ancestral consciousness, ancestral spirit through the ring shouts and the night hollers and so forth. They knew that only Sankofa could defeat Ma'afa. That's what we have to learn now. And so what we do with that injection is to reestablish the Ma'atic rhythm. Next one, please. And through these rituals that get stronger and stronger and stronger, we are reintroducing ourselves to ourselves, reestablishing that ancestral memory, and getting stronger as a people, understanding ourselves as a people. And so eventually, next one, please, we are able to return to the natural cycle, which allows us to be developing our civilization for ourselves as a sovereign people. And I think that's the last one for now. Let's hold off. That's an introduction. And what I want to do is to apply the paradigm to our subject today, to talk about our brothers. And let me say, again, just take a second to say that I feel privileged. I asked my brother, I said, you might want a female voice, because our brothers are just be in there, because our brothers will hear that voice differently, and we as sisters have something to say to the brothers. I mean, it's very good. I like the fact that brothers come together as brothers. But it is a privilege to be here among you. And one of the reasons for that, and by the way, it wasn't supposed to be me. It was supposed to be somebody else. And I agreed to do this. But I'm speaking, I'm taking the prerogative to speak for African women and to say that we love you. And not only do we love you, but we like you. And we like the way you are, the way you do things, the way you move. That's how we feel about you, brothers. And you need to know that. And you need to know that from us. We like your gentleness. We like your protecting us. We like to watch you do things and take care of business. We just like you. I had to say that. If we begin with Ma'at, and I'm going to try to move real fast using the paradigm, Ma'at would be health, us in a condition of health. It is also allowing us to reach back to the sacred paradigms of the divine masculine, which I think we need to be thinking in terms of as an alternative to the way in which we've been taught to think about men, maleness, manhood, and so forth in this Babylon that we live in. Asar organizes African civilization. These are the divine paradigms now. Ogun gives us the tools of African civilization. The divine feminine makes the earth grow. The divine masculine is our potential, the Ashe of Africa, projected into the future. The divine feminine is our sacred past, carried in the ancestral womb. Neither finds fulfillment in itself, but manifests its wholeness in complementary relationship, which is causes it to necessarily move outside of itself. That is the nature of male and female energy. Male and female energy in relationships, male and female energy in sexual union as well. African men manifest their wholeness in relationship to African women. The African man and the African woman keep each other healthy. That is a very important thought, idea, and reality. And we need to come back to that at some point, because I'm also talking about physical health as well as spiritual, emotional, cultural, and political health. We look to our sacred narratives to teach us. Asar is cut into pieces. A set puts those pieces back together. Asar needs a set to be remembered. This is a timeless truth coming to us from our ancestors. Aset is the throne and gives Heru, her son, authority. She is the seat of power. Heru is the king reborn. This is a paradigm for the divine masculine, for spiritual and cultural and political maturity, not necessarily societal hierarchy, and we need to look at that as well. Asar, Jehudi, our confidence, our clarity, precision for us. The divine masculine is regeneration, rebirth, and the renewal that we see in the Tekund. The divine masculine places the seed of life into the receptacle of life and protects its sacred growth. That growth place is the womb from which we all come. Ogun creates through destruction. In this divine principle, we see those two, the tension between the destruction and the creation in the paradigm of Ogun, Gu, among the Fon people. You see violence used for development. This is controlled violence. Ogun is a principle of brotherhoods, guilds, fraternal organizations. Balogun is the warrior group. And I want to say here, very interestingly, that in Yoruba language, Ogun, and my pronunciation is not informed, but Ogun is medicine. Ogun is war. And so there is a dynamic between these two. And Ogun is also the surgeon. There are a lot of characteristics of Ogun as an Orisha, as an energy, which is what the Orisha are, and the Abasum, that we need to study in order to help us have a paradigm for what it means to be an African man. Ogun represents both death in cutlasses that are made, and healing and agriculture through the hoes and other tools of agriculture that are made, because Ogun is the blacksmith. Is associated with iron tools, which are associated with civilization, with building. The blacksmith focuses energies in the anvil, which produces the heat through which Ogun is then tempered and controlled. Ogun demands justice and integrity. Ogun Gu, they are one and the same, is said to be protective of the poor and the dispossessed. Ogun's colors are red, black, and green. His day is Tuesday. His number is 3. He is the divine blacksmith. He is a mighty warrior. Ogun brought fire and hunting and is the opener of roads, the clearer of fields. He is the first warrior and the first builder. It is Ogun, the Ogun energy. You see, we're speaking of energy here, of spiritual, natural energy. We personify it, but don't get confused by that. Okay, we're not talking about some big person. We are talking about an energy which our brothers need to tap into and do tap into. It is Ogun who transformed ore into iron and is the founder of towns and of all revolutionary acts. Ogun destroys destruction in order to rebuild. Intoro is a concept that comes to us from the tree language among the Akan people. It is the idea of the father spirit. I don't know how much we've talked about fathering today. It's essential for the health of black men and women and the black family. The Intoro spirit connects generations of fathers who teach male children to know and respect their maleness. It is the energy of the divine masculine passed to both male and female children. It is the spirit which connects all those who come from the same ancestral male seed. So you speak of an Intoro group. And if you were a Khan, you would know what Intoro group you belong to. And that would dictate certain eating habits that you would have, certain characteristics that you expected to have, and so forth. Among the Akan, what we believe is that this spirit force of the Intoro, now this is the father's spirit force, directs the child's spirit until the child is about 12. It depends on the child. When the child's own sum, which is his or her unique personality, or we can also say sum means their inner blackness, or their inner black power, I like to say, is developed enough for self-direction. So the father's Intoro is doing all of this, and then kind of lets up as the child comes into her or his own. African fathering in Ma'at is the genius of the divine masculine incarnating in social context and is essential for healthy African civilization. That's just some words and ideas which you have to add to on Ma'at in terms of talking about the health of black men. Now we move to another term of the paradigm, and that is ma'afa. Ma'afa. Disease. Ma'afa. Disconnection. What has that meant for African men? The divine masculine becomes atrophied in the ma'afa. At first, we were forcibly disconnected from the source of our divinity. Now we disconnect ourselves. This anti-African cultural environment is ma'afa. That is what we live in now, and it causes the breakdown of African cultural immune system. I want to repeat that again and again throughout this presentation, the importance of the idea of the immune system. Culture is an immune system for a race of people. What is the state of our immune system? The Urugu virus attacks on the inside using Africans as hosts and attacks the spirit. Again, the Urugu virus attacks the spirit. It weakens and subverts then the immune system, you see? Okay. So that we are no longer producing the warriors. And I'll talk about what I mean by a warrior at some point. So we turn on each other as the immune system begins to function in service of the alien bodies, the foreign bodies, the poison, Urugu. The ma'afa process uses us to destroy ourselves. Plantations planted seeds of future destruction. The virus seeks to destroy the immune system. This we call or identify as cultural genocide. The result is cultural AIDS. What does it cause? Many things. Let's just mention a few. Profane sex, promiscuous, dehumanizing, debilitating, and disease-producing. Brothers in prison coming home with HIV-positive status that we aren't talking about when they come back to the community. Brothers being intentionally taught to abuse or to be abused in forced same-sex activity. Things we don't want to talk about. Our ancestral selves, our ancestral being, our ancestral consciousness still experiences the rape of the kidnapping of the Middle Passage, of chattel enslavement. Still experiences the beatings, the pain of separation, the humiliation of powerlessness, which continues now in the continuing ma'afa process. To escape the pain, we do drugs and then we sell drugs. We do sex and then we sell sex. We do religion and then we sell religion. But the pain doesn't go away. We get PhDs and the pain is still there. In the ma'afa process, we become addicted to these mechanisms of escape. And we call them comfort zones. And we will fight and argue viciously with other Africans to protect these comfort zones. But we have difficulty organizing to fight the oppressor of our people, or to destroy the virus. The principle of the Ma'afa is fear. Fear creates egos in the place of whole selves. The ego blocks, it does not join. So when Nana talked about the energy and sharing the energy and the flow of energy, our egos that have been created block that flow of energy. That has an effect on our health spiritually, emotionally, and culturally. The Ma'afa manufactures false needs, which create false egos. We are then manipulated by the system of white supremacy, so that when Professor Granger talked about, he talked about when you buy, when you consume, and questioning what it was that you were buying. Do I really need this? We have to see how all of this interlocks and everything connects with each other and feeds on each other, so that the fact that we might think that we need to spend 90% of our income on things that we don't really need in terms of our family and the well-being of our people, we've already been conditioned for that. And we've been conditioned to make those decisions and those choices partly by the construction of this ego, which Aikwe Armah calls the smaller self. And remember, in 2000 Seasons, he talks about things. He talks about, it's like we become addicted to the things that then the European produces and they dangle them in front of us. All of this is related to our spiritual, emotional, and cultural health. I have to say that one of my favorite quotes comes from Bob Marley, a sage among us. And he says, every need's got an ego to feed. Every need's got an ego to feed. I'm not going to say anything more about that. I want you to think about it. Kings and queens, says Aikwe Armah, need servants and slaves. The Urugu virus creates the ego. The ego needs that position of superiority over other Africans. That is disease producing itself. That is pathology. Brothers in Ma'afa are disconnected from each other. That's why it was very important to have the ritual of the hugging. They are in competition with each other. They therefore cannot be open with each other or honest with each other. They avoid each other on that level. They are afraid not just of each other, but of themselves. We, as a people, are afraid of ourselves. Brothers are in the Ma'afa desacralizing the womb, disregarding, disrespecting the divinity of the womb, seeking surrogates for the healing womb power that they need. Sister mothers, frozen in fear for their sons, are imprisoning their sons in their fear. Men's sons move towards and into the streets, the seductive gangster mode, to escape the prison of the mother fear. They move into these danger zones to prove their independence, using a false model and conception of manhood, and a twisted sense of what courage is all about. We women must find the way to help our men find their manhood in our love. The Ma'afa prevents us from doing that. The Ma'afa process, the virus, is against touching. It is against intimacy. Amara Ona, in the promise that we read from, is telling us how important touching was for us at home in the motherland, and how we were ripped away from each other, and that as that happened, we must have looked in the eyes of each other and promised, we will touch again. And that now, as ancestors reborn, that has to be our commitment to each other, that we touch again. Because the Ma'afa process is against that touching, our men are unable to find their manhood in touching women. The Ma'afa twists our desires. And so we are taught and trained and conditioned to find manhood in possessing other men as women. In seeking to dominate. And so sexuality becomes reduced to an act of violence against objects, whether they be women or pseudo-women. This is not intimacy. It is not joining. It is not connecting. You got to be able to touch us. And if you can't touch us, you can't love us. And if you can't love us, you can't fight for us. And what's scary for all of us, and I think particularly for our brothers, is that to love us is to be able to cry for us. Didn't you know you'd have to cry sometime? Brothers, you have distanced yourselves from the child you fathered and don't know how to get back. You don't see your child because you're furious, not just mad and angry, with her mother, with his mother. You're still sad and you're still hurt by her. And you're ashamed and you're sad because you haven't been there and you haven't felt good enough to be there. And sister, you don't let him see his child, and you don't let your child see his father because you're still mad at him and you're still hurt and you can't confront the pain. We are fragmented. We are not whole. Baba Fukiao from the Congo tells us that a child who is disconnected from his father, from her father, is seedless. That's a term and a concept that they have in Kikongo. So we are giving birth to generations of seedless children. I want to take I know I don't have a lot of time, but I do need to say this because I haven't said it too much out loud. I shared it with Aziza, but I want to say personally my response to the film Antoine Fisher. And then maybe we'll have time to talk about that at another time. Brothers that I know and respect were really moved by that film and feel it was great. One brother said to me it made him proud to be a black man. I was in tremendous pain while I was watching that film. And what I saw was, I saw a sister who was given no voice to express what pain she must have experienced as she let her child go. I saw a sister who was not allowed to speak, but where tears were coming down her face, and nobody said, well, tell me your story. I saw women abusing an African child, and every woman who did this looked like an African in the sense of having features that were very, very African, that we associate with that, and whose skin was dark African. And I saw women in this film who were the kind, loving women who were all, well, two of them were lighter skinned, and one in particular who I just couldn't imagine would have been cast in that role, who was the wife of Denzel. And that brought me a lot of pain. And we need to talk about that, brother to sister, at some point. And so I wanted to share that with you. We have to confront our pain and speak the disappointment, the fear, the sadness. But we avoid that because we are avoiding the battlefield. We dance around it. But there is no wholeness in denial, and there is no wellness in avoidance. There is a term that people are using a lot now of talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome. We have a concept that goes much deeper than that and is more specific to our people. And I want to begin using that. Mputa za lufukuzu is in Kikongo, and it refers to the wounds of annihilation which are passed on through generations. That is the illness that we have to deal with now. Baba Wakesa says, you don't really know racism until you have a child. There is a need for, well, let me back up. We're in Ma'afa, okay? Remember, I'm giving them the Ma'afa part now. And there exists a fear in Ma'afa of female power. There is a need for our people, our brothers, to cleanse themselves of that fear. And there is a need for African women to be able to manifest that power without seeking to immobilize our men. Our power must be empowering. Brothers are caught up in the image of what they're supposed to be rather than in the self. How you're supposed to act or not act as dictated by Urugu, by the oppressor. And so we are trained to imitate or to be an imitation of what European males say they are supposed to be. You were trained to believe, for instance, that you're not supposed to trust as a man. But really, that's not you. But that's what you think you're supposed to be. Sisters hurt brothers, and then brothers become cold, and that reverses itself as well. And so the Ma'afa process conditions us to play games with each other because of the distancing, the lack of trust, and the coldness. And we become afraid of exposure, afraid of failure. And so we don't reach out and we don't try. Now I want to give two kind of analogies which I think are very telling. And one I call the circus principle. And in the circus principle, you have an animal who has natural abilities to protect itself, to feed itself, to survive, strengths, powers. And then you have a trainer. And that trainer's job is to make the animal forget that it has those abilities. The trainer whips the animal. And the trainer also feeds the animal. The trainer causes the animal to fear him. The animal forgets that it is more powerful than that trainer. So the animal is in this situation of approach and avoidance because that trainer's got the food that you need, right? But you're avoiding that whip. This is real in terms of Ma'afa and in terms of us, in terms of our brothers and in terms of our sisters in relationship to Yurugu. That trainer can make an animal jump through a hoop towards fire. You know how unnatural that is? All animals avoid fire. That's some powerful stuff that trainer is doing. But you know what? The animal is more powerful. All the animal has to know is that it can feed itself and it can kill that trainer. You know, certainly neutralize him. And it would be all over for the trainer. I got another one. And that is what I call the abused child syndrome. Very often, too often, and there are some experts here in the audience that can, or in the community that can talk to this, correct me on this. The parent who abuses a child becomes, in one very pathological sense, the favored parent of that child. Again, parent is abusing the child physically, emotionally. But the child, well, somebody said fear. I don't know if it's just fear, okay? First of all, the process of that abuse Part of that is to convince the child that he or she is unworthy of being loved and of being treated with love, right? Now that, that's something like the animal in the other one. You're already in bad shape if you don't feel worthy of being loved. But you crave love. You may feel unworthy, but you crave love. And you crave love of the parent who abuses you. Because somehow you've got to prove to that parent that you are worthy. And what happens is that the abuse itself represents attention. You see? You're getting attention from that parent through the abuse of the parent. And attention is substituted for love. Do you see where I'm going? The attention is substituted for love. Not question. You see, the parent is seen as being powerful, as being all-powerful. That's you've got to convince any child or any person that you're going to continually abuse, you've got to convince them that you are more powerful than they are, and that they have no power, and that they are unworthy. Okay? As long as they are convinced of that, then you are in control. In terms of this Ma'afa environment that we live in terms of our relationship to global white supremacy, as Dr. Welsing would say, and the European domination order. We seek love from Urugu. I'm going to repeat it. We seek love from Urugu. We seek validation from Urugu. Everybody knows what I mean by Urugu? I don't want to just be saying, I shouldn't have been saying that. Okay. Let me just say the European, okay? We seek attention from Urugu so that we will even march to show something to Urugu before we will do the quiet work among our people, which is the hard day-to-day work. I'm not saying it has to be either or, but I'm trying to show you that the accolades that we get, the degrees that we get, the titles that we get, a lot of the things that we do, even the money that we make, what makes it really, really good is when we think that European society is saying, oh, look at that. Look how well she speaks. Look how much he knows. Look how many degrees he has. Where do those degrees come from? And what do they mean? Oh, no.
I'm upset with that, but is
No.
what you're talking, is that a personification?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's like asking for an apology for slavery. No, I mean, how could you care what they have to say? You know what I'm saying? How could that? No. We talking about power here. We talking about African sovereignty. That's the ball game. You know, that we got to define that ball game. Okay, it's not about anybody feeling sorry for what they may have done. It's not about that. It's not about them, really. Let's move on very quickly so that we can finish up. I think where I'm at, let's do the next one. I am at Sankofa. And of course it's the most important one because that's about the healing. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these to talk about Sankofa, so it won't take as long. There are many, many things that need to happen in the process of Sankofa, which is the healing. This whole thing is about the spiritual, emotional, cultural healing of African men, and what you're able to see on these charts is the different terms. So Ma'at we talked about, Ma'afa we talked about. Sankofa is the affirming of spirit. It is reconnecting with the ancestors. One of the things that has happened to our men, as has been talked about, is disconnection from the ancestral self. You can't do nothing without recognition of your ancestral self. That's what the promise is about. It's about the fact that we are our ancestors. Baba Wakesa tells us that one of the things that we need to do is to, as African men, I'm speaking for our African men, you need to do is to learning to stand on principle. And of course this is true of the sisters, and that's why I can say that. Even if it means the worst, even if it means death, not in a rigid way, but understanding the implications of your standing on principle for your family and for your children for generations to come. In Sankofa, African men must be nurturing. In Sankofa, African men must create businesses that can employ your children. In Sankofa, you must earn your yere, we call it, your wife's respect daily, so that she in turn will teach your sons to respect you. That comes from Baba Wakesa, who you're going to hear from tomorrow. I'm going to skip a lot of things. There are more handouts. You want to do that? For people who did not get these you can do the next one. The challenge for our men and for our people generally is, but particularly our men, is how do you organize in the community and at the same time build a family? We got to learn how to do that, because actually building a family is part of the organizing work for African sovereignty and liberation. Men, of course, must take charge of warrior training in the community. That has to happen. Somebody, I don't know if it was Samori, but someone said earlier about teaching 2 people or something like that. Every brother here should be involved in a manhood training process for African boys. Every single one should be involved in that in some way. That has to happen. You have to teach the younger brothers. Our concept of what it means to be a warrior is not focused on killing or destruction, but on commitment. That's what it means to be a warrior. And consistency. Repeat that. Commitment and consistency. We've got to organize rituals. We've got to organize healing and reconciliation rituals that take place in sacred spaces, in intimate, private environments where ain't no other person who's not African can be there. Okay? That's just a given. This is the hard part. We must organize rituals of apology. I say this as a sister. Rituals of apology. Apology for the womanizing of your youth. That's part of the healing. That you can say that. That you can say that sincerely to sisters and to a sister. I did that, and I'm sorry. Because that's not who I am. And I understand that now. Also rituals in which brothers apologize for brothers who have abused our children. We need to do that ritually. And even though you haven't done that, brother, you can say to us, I'm sorry that that was done to you. You can say that to our children. You can hold us and tell us that you're sorry. You'd be surprised, because of what you mean to us, how far that would go. The act of an African warrior is to be able to commit. A brother who claims to be committed to Pan-African liberation but is unable to commit to a sister is not yet a warrior. We use the term ayaresa, and I think I have some things there showing it, so we may as well just put that up. And that is the healing. It comes from the tree language. It is the healing of our people. In ayaresa, we've got to be able to help each other through healing rituals, which allow us to face our greatest fear. And that fear, my brothers, is a fear of our own capacity to love. We're afraid to do that, but we can give each other the strength to do that. We feel that loving causes weakness, as opposed to that loving is a strength. And we have to develop what I call the ritual of tears. Because again, we cannot heal until we cry. Aziza says that there is strength in gentleness, and that we've got to let you brothers know that. And so all of these things are the warrior spirit. In Sankofa, brothers are saying to their fathers, okay, this is hard part. Brothers saying to their fathers, where have you been? And then listening to their voices. Listening to these voices that have been silenced by Yurugu. Saying to their fathers, you hurt me. You've got to be able to do that. And then letting go of the need to punish him any more than he has already been punished by Yurugu, or than he will punish himself. And understanding, my brothers, that you are whatever you have chosen to be. And to stop blaming your father for what you are. This is the warrior posture. The warrior posture recognizes that we have hurt each other because of the Ma'afa process and of cultural aids. And the hurt will continue until we are able to say the worst of that hurt, the worst of what was done to us, and to be able to hear it when somebody says it to us. You see, those of us who consider ourselves organizers in the movement, the conscious people, and, I'll even talk about being about healing, we don't want to really hear those stories that bring out the ugliness of the Ma'afa. It's like a physician that doesn't really want to look at the ugliness of the tumorous growths in a body. You got to be able to look at them if you're going to deal with them and help them to heal. But we don't want to do that. I'm saying we, I'm including myself, we want to have a distance from that. We want to be able to speak abstractly, but we don't want to get our hands dirty. We got to be able to hear it, and we got to be able to say it. We got to be able to commit to each other and let each other know as we hug each other that we're in this together, and together we can heal. The warrior spirit confronts. That's why it's a warrior. It is the gate opener to healing. It makes healing possible. You see, healing is the greatest challenge that we have. If we heal ourselves, dealing with the system of white supremacy that's easy. The hard part is us healing ourselves. It's the greatest challenge, the greatest fear exists on a personal inner level, not the political and the outer level. We've got to use these Ma'afa wounds to become stronger, to become more powerful. Remember Asamoah Nkwanta in the book The Healers by Aikwe Armah. And if you don't remember it, read it. Get a hold of it and read it. But this was this great general who was so effective that everybody followed. But he couldn't fight anymore. Why? Because he was sick in his soul and he needed to be healed. This is the work that we have to do. The womb is the beginning of the divine masculine. The womb is Ma'at. It is the sacred birthplace of the warrior. And Sankofa, return to the source, is the breast milk, which allows us to build antibodies to Urugu. It is reclaiming our cultural prerogative. And now I'm almost finished. I want to use another analogy, but this is more than an analogy. My brother's helping me with this. The idea of an immune system, which I've just been finding so relevant and so real for us as a people. I'm not trained in biology, so this is real simple. But you got T cells, which are a type of lymphocyte. What is their job? Their job is to seek out foreign bodies, seek out the antigens. When they identify these threatening bodies or substances, these foreign agents, what happens? They become activated. And then they begin to multiply quickly. That's a response to the identification of the foreign body or the threat. There's also this communication that goes on, where it's like these cells come back and they let the others know, and then okay, let's reproduce ourselves because we need more warriors. It's like a call to war. I mean, that's how I see it. And so my brother tells me that this alerts this process, and so we have killer T cells. I mean, this is the language of the biologists. Of immunology, this is the language. I noticed there's a reason I like it, okay? All right, and some of the things they do is to inject something that is going to neutralize, that targets those cells. Certain T cells, when they recognize that enemy, they respond faster than others. There are memory T cells. That to me is very important. And the reading I've been doing about genetic memory, they're always talking about the immune system. Very interesting. Think about it. Genetic memory. We all got it. Now they're saying it. Now they're using that term. We've got genetic memory. And that's about the immune system? So what would it be that the enemy would be trying to destroy in us? Okay? What did they do? They tried to erase our cultural memory. Isn't that what they did? Isn't that what they're doing? every day. Isn't that what school is about in terms of their schools that we send our children to? Now, it seems to me, without talking any more about this process, one thing I do need to mention is that as these T cells are produced so rapidly when there is a need for them, and then they do their job, and then when they subdue the enemy, then they kind of, they subside, right? But there are a few that are left as sentinels. You hear me? You know what sentinels are? They're the watchers, right? They watch, and they keep guard, don't they? Isn't that what a sentinel does? Okay. Not my language. It would seem to me that the immune system, this protective system, is activated by attack. Doesn't it sound like that? Am I right in saying that? Okay. So that, and that part of what has to happen is that the threatening bodies, the antigens, the enemy must be recognized. Okay? You with me? Now I want to switch the channels to Maafa 2005 and see what does that say to us. Maafa 2005, as we look at the TV, as we visit people at the shelters, what do we see? Are the, we call them, in New Orleans, we used to call them spy boys, those of you who know the black Indians. Are they correctly seeing what they're supposed to see? I don't know what you see. But what I see is premeditated genocide. That's what I see. And it seems to me that that's what we're supposed to see. Urugu in this situation saves or rescues and destroys. You see that? Okay? We are dependent on the destroyer to save our lives. Urugu, or the foreign body in this case, is disconnecting African families. That's the building block of the strength that we have. Is usurping property for profit, is stealing children. And it seems that we're powerless. Again, how do we interpret that? Where are the warriors? This is a premeditated genocidal act, which is part of a process of genocide. What are they calling us? They're calling us something that is very revealing, that may bring home, to the sentinels what we need to be seeing. Refugees. What is a refugee? It's a person without a home. Didn't we think that this was our home? Didn't we think that? Didn't we no longer call Africa home? Didn't we no longer think that we needed to build our own home? Because we here, we home. No, we're homeless. They are causing cultural confusion. They are causing total confusion. Our people are in a state of confusion, including us, those who are not there when the storm hit. We're not in the flooded areas. We're confused. We're in chaos. They are causing loss. They are causing death. They are causing disease. They are causing disconnectedness. That is straight up ma'afa. And so what this is saying is putting ma'afa right in your face. How do we respond? We respond by, as Nana said, opening up our hearts. And so we give. We give to each other for a little while. But we ain't talking about something that needs to be for a little while. And we're not even talking about something that is going to be corrected by us collecting food or clothing. It ain't about that. It is bigger than that. In Atlanta, there are 30,000 people in Atlanta alone who are displaced. It's a lot of people for an infrastructure to absorb that is not equipped to do that, ain't interested in doing that. And there's really a lot of people for a community to do that that is not organized to do that. Okay? Dr. Clark said to us, are we ready for the 21st century? He said, can you purify muddy water? Dr. Clark said that. Kwame Ture said one word 3 times. Organize, organize, organize. If we have a march of millions of our people, there should be one purpose, as far as I'm concerned, and one purpose only, and that should be to state very clearly, categorically, unequivocally, we charge genocide. One voice saying the same thing. And in terms of any money that is collected, you know the money that it will take to build and rebuild communities, to build schools, to build organizations that serve the people. This is a time for us to activate the cultural immune system and to build Pan-African organization that we have not had before. That is what this is saying to us. It is saying, no, you ain't able to take care of your people. It is saying what Dr. Clark was saying to us, do we want to be a beggar people? What does it take to be able to take care of yourselves? And the brothers and sisters, we need to understand. And so I would end with something very personal. My spiritual work is that I do this every day. And I ask myself, how could our ancestors, not so much how as why would our ancestors survive a kidnap, incarceration in the dungeons, and the filth in the dungeons, and then greater filth and disease in the holds of the ships of the Middle Passage? and disconnection all of this time, and separation of family and separation of our people, going to different parts of this Western hemisphere, and then survive over 300 years of chattel enslavement, and then survive the continuing Ma'afa process of lynching and sexploitation and economic exploitation and menticide. Why survive that? Why live that way? What would be a reason? And the only answer that I could come up with is that our ancestors have always had this faith and had this hope, and that it must have been incredible. And then the question is, well, what could they hope for? And well, logically, it's like it must have been us, because we couldn't be here if they hadn't survived all of that. Now that's just real. That ain't a deep thing. I mean, it is deep, but it's not complex. That if our ancestors had not survived, we would not be here now. Therefore, they must have survived because they wanted us to be here now. You with me on that? Okay, so then another question must be coming to your mind. Yeah. Let's get the real why. You know? Why would they want us to be here? What is it that they would be wanting us to do? You think they wanted us to be here so that we could be in corporate America, or that we could be part of the U.S. government, which makes decisions to bomb our people? You know, did they want us to be here so that we could be living high off the hog? Are those the kinds of reasons you think they went through all of that for? No. Our ancestors went through all of that because they had the faith in us that we would organize, struggle, and sacrifice to continue to build African civilization. Because we have to understand, we're part of a continuum, because our ancestors over tens of thousands of years ago began this process, okay? And the Ma'afa, we have to understand as only a disruption, a temporary disruption in that process. But it's only temporary if we make it so. So they must have survived so that we could build this Pan-African world order based on Ma'atic principles for our children's 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 children and beyond. That's why we're here. We are here to fulfill a promise. And so my question to you that I'll end with is, what have you done today to fulfill the promise to our ancestors? Thank you.
And his crew, the Hunter brothers. I started these guys talking about family. The Hunter brothers. Find a way. Let's get this circle right. Nana Bobbin away. Where's Nana Bobbin at? Nana Bobbin. Run around. Where's Nana Bobbin? We got it, dog. Okay. Run around. Hello, y'all. Come in. Look. We have your hand. Oh, Robert, on the end. Come up. We got it. We got nobody out now. All around. Silence for 30 seconds.
to our ancestors for having chosen us to be African. To be African is the revolutionary act of our time. I should. Hug somebody.